Why protest in an election year? You'll hear a number of people ask this question. What purpose does it serve other than to help people feel good? Well, in Social Science Quarterly in 2018, sociologists Daniel Gillion and Soule published an empirical research paper to address that question. Their article is called "The Impact of Protest on Elections in the United States." They looked at data involving U.S. House of Representatives election returns from the years 1960 to 1990. That's nearly 2,000 House elections. The outcomes they studied were the percentage of the votes to Republicans and the percentage of votes to Democrats for each House seat. They developed a protest salience score. So any one protest could get up to 9 points. You add 1 point to either the liberal or the conservative protest score, depending on whether it's a liberal or conservative protest. And you look at 9 conditions. First, is the protest more than 100 people? Add a point. Second, does it last more than a day? Add a point. Is it backed by an organization? Add a point. Is there property damage in the protest? Add a point. Are there police at the protest? Add a point. Is there an arrest? Are there weapons? Is there injury? Is there death at a protest? Add a point for each of those. Individuals who are engaged in protest who have no compunction about property damage, arrest, weapons, injury, or death may want to engage in a protest that is active on all 9 points. Those who are perhaps comfortable with police or arrest but may not be comfortable with damage or injury have fewer points at their disposal but can get salience points of a certain low number just by having enough people, by having it last long enough, or having it be backed by an organization. This is what they found in a multiple regression analysis. For every liberal salience point, the effect on the Republican vote share is 1 to subtract 0.12% of that vote share. Or, at the same time, to add 0.04% of the Democratic vote share. So, Democrats are turned out by a small amount for every liberal salience point of protest, and at a rate 3 times as large, Republicans are discouraged from turning out to the polls. That is true, even controlling for a number of other variables: incumbency of a candidate, challenger quality, region of the country, length of service of a candidate, or district size. To put the effect in perspective, imagine you get 50 salience points of liberal protest. That subtracts 6% from the share of the vote going to the Republican. It adds 2% to the share of the vote going to the Democratic candidate. And that is enough to swing most elections. So ask, how can you get to 50 salience points? You could have 25 protests that have more than 100 people and are backed by an organization. That alone, 25 protests during that election year, about more than 100 people, with the protest backed by an organization, and you have a swing that's really incredible. If you have just 12 of that, you still have a swing in the vote that is minus 3% to the Republican share of the vote for that candidate. And you add a point to the Democratic share in the vote. To do that with just a dozen protests of considerable size means you can really affect an election with protest in an election year.